Scary EIRE. EIRE is the Irish or Gaelic word for Ireland. Paranormal means all the things that are impossible to explain by known natural forces or by science. And Ireland is steeped in lore, ghosts, blood, sweat, tears, sacrifice, hunger, desperation, and charm. Oh, and the paranormal. Welcome to Scary EIRE.
Mark Manning.
Well, another year over and a new one's just begun. Certainly hope you had a fantastic Christmas and great holidays. Shortly we'll be hearing all things witchery from the lovely Yvonne Lawton in Youghal County Cork. And then we go to the west to Galway, where Philip Costello of Paranormal Awakenings Ireland reports on all the ghostly goings on in Galway. I'd like to wish all our listeners a very happy 2K25. With a special thanks going to Paranormal UK Radio Network for platforming us. Right, let's get on with the show.
Yeah, a couple of things over the years, but I've learned, well, I suppose it's not learned, I've just become accustomed to it, and I think it's kind of, it's another sense or something. But often when you go into places, you'll get a feeling for the place, and you'll get a feeling of whether or not it's comfortable. And whatever causes that, who knows what causes that, but we have an intuition, we have an inbuilt intuition. I can't describe what it is or where it comes from or the physics of it or the chemistry of it, but it's there, and anybody will tell you to stick with your intuition. If you think something doesn't feel right, then don't hang around.
Superb advice from regular contributor to Scary EIRE, David McGlynn, aka The Squire. And don't hang around either. If you've got an Irish paranormal tale to tell, simply email paranormalireland@protonmail.com and it'll be read out for you. Or you get to tell it on air yourself. That's paranormalireland@protonmail.com.
Yvonne Lawton is a witch. She won't mind me saying that, because she is. Stick around, because you're going to find out all about witchcraft. Now, she's involved with the Festival of Samhain, and she's going to tell us all about it. Before we went anywhere, though, I decided to ask her all about Youghal, where she operates out of, a beautiful part of Ireland, in County Cork on the southeast coast.
It's a real magical place. We have a most amazing festival every year called the Spirit of Samhain, but more than that, we have about 22 witches, and we meet minimum 8 times a year to celebrate all the seasons. And we work with nature. And one of the witchcraft, there wasn't very much witchcraft trials in Ireland, because we Irish people love the supernatural, and we understand that it goes hand in hand, walks beside us on a different level, on a different vibration. So we had poor Florence Newton, who was tried as a witch in Youghal. And I think we only had something like 4 witchcraft trials in Ireland, where you can go to Scotland and there was 2,500 witchcraft trials there.
I think also after Alice Kittler in Kilkenny, a spate of burnings of witches happened.
Not in Ireland. We love our witches and we love our fairy people, and we've got a deep respect for the other world, and we understand, or we know that it walks beside us. And so if you kind of take a look at the whole witchcraft thing, you'll see that a lot of the witchcraft trials were in Ireland even, and Youghal used to be a garrison town where you had the Puritans, and that is probably one of the reasons why we would have had a witchcraft trial. But generally in Ireland there was no witchcraft trials at all. As I said, there was 4. So you take the whole country of Ireland and there was only 4 witchcraft trials. Absolutely amazing, when everything else was going on in Scotland and England and Europe. But we have a deep respect for the world of the invisible.
I think Alice Kittler herself escaped, didn't she?
Well, she escaped, yeah. She escaped to England because she had money.
Oh.
And then it was her poor maid that they burnt instead.
Can you remember the maid's name?
Petronella, the maid's name.
That's right, I'd forgotten it. But I want to row back to Youghal, if you pardon the pun, because it is on the southeast, right? It's a magical.
It is, yeah.
You say it's a magical place. It's a magical sounding name. It's spelt Yougha, or some people say Hal. Describe it for us, Yvonne.
It's a medieval town. It has, in the centre of the town is the clock tower, and before they would have held prisoners in the clock tower. In fact, I believe some people were hung off it at some stage. But before that, there was a place called Trinity Gates, and they believe that Florence Newton, who was tried as a witch, might have been held there. Our town walls, I believe, over 1,000 years old, and you can still walk the town walls today. It's absolutely steeped in history. Sir Walter Raleigh was here. They believe Spencer, who wrote The Fairy Queen, was here as well. So we had a lot of historical people that lived in the town itself, and obviously Moby Dick was made, that famous film was made in Youghal. We have hundreds and hundreds of years of history within the town, and the amazing thing is, like, when you walk through the town, you can actually see the town walls, you can stand on the town walls, you can go and visit the clock tower. It was also one of the richest ports in Ireland as well, and they used to stop here and wash people's feet who were going pilgrimages off to Jerusalem. And we had 4 different types of monks here as well. So it's like the history here is absolutely endless. I believe there's about maybe 6,000 people that live here at the moment. Obviously, we have the beaches, we have the River Blackwater. You can go up it on a boat, Tony Gallagher's boat, and Blackwater cruises, and you can go and see the mountains. You can see a very old monastery as well, which is on the side of the river. So it's absolutely steeped in history. It's a phenomenal place to visit. And during the year, then, we have all different festivals to celebrate, obviously, different seasons as well.
It's on the estuary, isn't it, of the river you
mentioned? It is. It's on the mouth of the Blackwater, where the Blackwater meets the sea.
Beautiful. And the sea, of course, there's a whole maritime history and a military history to the area.
There is. It's absolutely huge. What we have within the town is amazing, especially if you're a history buff. And if you do like witchcraft and magic, we also cater to that. So there's something for everybody. And you say there's military as well. So it's incredible. We've got the most amazing boardwalk that you can walk on. And it's quite busy because it's at the side. It's built on the beach at the side of. It's very user friendly. So if you want to push a buggy, for those who are in wheelchairs, they can experience the beach as well.
You've painted a beautiful picture of the area, and not only is it physically beautiful, but you've created that spellbound kind of imagery of it as well, with the medieval references and the gates, and the place is immersed in history. Talk to me about the spirit of Samhain.
The spirit of Samhain, rather than Halloween, celebrates what Samhain is. As we know, Samhain was found in Ireland, up in the Hill of Tara, because we do have a magical community here. And we've got something like, as I said, 22 witches. And not only do we have witches from Ireland, we have them from Wales, Scotland, Brazil, America. So we have quite a range of witches, of cultures. We all have that interest in witchcraft, which witchcraft is about working with the elements. It's about working with the seasons. It's about working with the plants and the flowers, and recognizing that everything has a spirit. We have put together a festival called the Spirit of Samhain, and it's 2 days, and it's basically based around a story. Well, it's not a story. It's an actual tale of a lady who is called An Banishke. So An Banishke, translated from Irish to English, is the woman of the water. And this is a true story that comes down from my grandmother. She tells the story, or she used to tell the story, about how my great-grandfather and his brother, they were out fishing one of the mornings, and the fog came in and they got lost. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know the way back to shore. And this lady rose up from the water and she pointed them back in the direction of Youghal town itself. That story got passed down through all our family. So we've kind of adapted that story and we've made it into one, that spirits, some people believe the spirits are bad, but obviously this is a very good spirit. We've kind of put our festival around her. We've celebrated the spirit world, in other words. We have obviously lots of different things going on, and we celebrate Florence Newton, who's the Witch of Youghal, and we have a lot of things going on for the kids. The thing that's our favourite is on Samhain night itself, we have a ritual. We have over 22 witches come together and they do the most beautiful ritual on the beach, and everybody from the town comes and they watch. And we call in our ancestors. We remember all of those who've gone before us, all of those yet to come. And we dance and we sing, and everybody gets to witness what witches really do, not what they think they do or not what they've seen in Hollywood, but what witchcraft is all about. And it's so busy and people absolutely love it and they're moved to tears. And a few weeks ago, we were lucky enough to have the Grim Reaper coming onto the beach. So we had this beautiful big white horse called Luna, and the Grim Reaper came and he walked around the fire 3 times and we went up through the town with him. And it's just about celebrating life and also celebrating death as well. We're so lucky to be able to do that now, whereas before, those who had those poor witches who were burnt to the stake or they were hung, they didn't get to be able to celebrate what, their passion or how they felt about the world, because people painted them in a real dark way because they were free spirits and they weren't being ruled by the church.
Does it happen at night time?
It happens at night time. It happens on the night of Samhain itself at 7 o'clock, and it's truly incredible.
I'd say it is. Again, it might sound a stupid question, but what do witches wear? Have you got any particular garb?
No.
No, it's
like
just
so you can meet some. You can, yeah, or it's like anybody else. Some people might like to dress up in a dress, or you know, people they think dresses or witches dress with these with the hats, the witch hats. But I mean, and everybody puts them on. But that kind of became popular from The Wizard of Oz in the 1940s.
Oh,
and
I'll get
that's
you
where
and
all
your
of that,
little dog too.
That's it.
The green witch.
And that's it. And that's why, I mean, you see witches painted green. So a lot of that comes from that movie, The Wizard of Oz. Now, before, in I think the 1700s in Germany, when women were pouring beer, they would have used the hats like that. So when you went to an establishment, a woman would have been wearing a hat like that and you knew that she was serving beer. So she was a beer maker. She made manufactured beer.
That's
and
my
you go
kind
and you
of
dash
witch.
for your pint. That's it. So kind of that's where all of that comes from. But, you know, like when we go onto the beach, we do dress up, we wear cloaks. And, you know, it wasn't necessarily that just witches wore cloaks. I mean, back then, everybody wore a cloak to keep you warm. And I suppose it's kind of our nod to the ancients or to those who came before us, you know, so we just put on the cloaks.
It's beautiful. And are there incantations or singing?
Oh, yes, there's lots of incantations, there's lots of singing as well. And in fact, on Saturday here, we're celebrating the winter solstice on the beach at 8:30 in the morning. So we will be doing some incantations, some singing. And we're doing it with the Youghal Active Retirement Group because they contacted us. We've been doing it with them for years now. But anybody can come along, you know, and celebrate the winter solstice. So that's all about the return of the light, the return of the sun coming
What's
back.
the name of the beach?
It's the Mal Beach, and it's in the centre. Yeah, and it's in the centre of Youghal. So again, how lucky are we to have a beach bang on in the centre of the town that we use, you know, to celebrate.
You're so lucky. And is it like a semicircle or a circle you do, or?
It's a circle that we do. We dance the circle as well, and we dance, we sing. You know, we just celebrate life. We celebrate being alive. And again, it's a time to remember those who are no longer with us at this time of the year, because obviously some of us, this time of the year is not necessarily happy or a joyous occasion, but, you know, we remember them fondly who used to sit around the table with you before, and we light candles just to remember them. But not only that, then we like to do a ceremony around, well, of all the children that were born this year, of the little, you know, the animals that were born, the new butterflies that came into the world.
The circle of life.
You know, everything, you know, so yeah. Just a good way of putting it, the circle of life.
Samhain itself, a lot of people don't realise the origins of Halloween are in Ireland, isn't that correct?
That's right, yeah. Samhain itself comes from Ireland, from the Hill of Tara, when the Druids used to light the fires. All the fires would be quenched in Ireland, and then the Druids would come and they would do their ceremony, and then they would light the fire, and from then all the other fires were lit in Ireland. Incredible, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also I'm just making a connection here, and it's probably an erroneous one, but you were saying that witchcraft is all about the harmony of nature and the elements, etc. How then would it differ from Druidry?
They're all kind of similar. Actually, I was talking with my friends last night, and we were saying even if you take a look at some of the Native American rituals, what they do, they're fairly similar to what we do here. At the end of the day, you know, it's all about tuning into nature. You know, how do you tune into nature? You know, like how do you know what a plant can give you as regards healing? If you take any of the tribes all over the world, that connection is there. It's all about celebrating nature. Now, you may do it a little bit differently because culturally we live in different parts of the world and we all have our own cultures. But the whole essence of what we do is really, if you were to cut it all down and bring it down to its very basics, we're all actually doing the same thing, but maybe just in a slightly different way.
I'm going to throw a few names at you here. Moll Goggin.
So poor Moll was waiting for her husband to come home. He went out to sea one day and she continued to wait. And she waited for him till the day she died, and she'd have a light on in our house, hoping that every night he would return home from the sea. And it's really funny you mention her, because when we did the Spirit of Sound, we did a thing called Tales by Candlelight, and we took all the characters from Youghal and we told their story. So we let them step out of the shadows and tell their story. And Moll Goggin was one of them.
Lovely.
And it was something very moving about how somebody has that much love for someone that they would spend the rest of their life looking for him. And I'm sure when she crossed over, she met with them.
Elaborate a little bit more about Florence Newton, because is the name of your... Explain a coven, first of all. Is a coven like a group of witches?
Well, a coven is a group of witches, but we're not a coven.
No.
We're a gathering because we have people from all cultures, and plus we have shamans who work with us. But a coven really is, I suppose it's more a religious aspect, because you have what's called Wiccans.
All right.
So Wiccan, Wiccan, I suppose, is more the religious side, if you like, and they have to adhere to certain rules. But whereas we, I suppose, maybe we're a bit wilder, but we don't. We just go and work with the seasons, and you can bring into the gathering whatever spells, incantations, whatever it is that you want to do. Whereas they would be more strict, and there's different lines of covens.
Florence Newton, are you gathered in her name, or what's the connection there?
Yeah, well, because Florence Newton was a witch and she was from Youghal, we kind of have that, I don't know, dotted line to her,
Lovely.
if you like. So nobody really knows what happened to Florence Newton. All we know is that she died when she was being held captive. So we don't really know, did she die from natural causes? Did they hang her? I believe if they would have hung her, they would have said that. So my own belief is that she would have died during the witchcraft trials, probably because, they tortured her. They kept this poor old woman in a jail cell. She was chained and she was beaten. And she was in her 60s. So at that time, that would have been considered quite old. So
thanks for saying that. I've recently turned 61 and I've been getting worried.
I said in that time. I didn't say now.
Well. And this was all around medieval times, wasn't it? Or?
This is 1661. She went to a house and she asked for some bread. The maid turned her away. So then I think the following day, she met her down by the well. It was believed then that she put a curse on the maid. And then, as you know, in witchcraft trials, all you need to do is point a finger. So then others came forward and said that she was after killing 3 children, and the whole thing snowballed. And then people were getting involved in it, because to be part of a witchcraft trial back then, it was a great way of becoming famous. So, the whole thing kind of snowballed for poor Florence. Yeah, so obviously we want to remember her. We want to remember who she is and how easy it is, for somebody to can accuse somebody of doing something, gossip, and how dangerous it is.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the witches, what proportion of them are men? Are there warlocks knocking about?
There would be a very small portion of it, maybe 20%. Oh. But you know what? But we're so lucky to have them and to have them as part of the group, because they bring obviously a different type of energy to the group as well. And, it's great to be able to sit down and discuss just different things that are happening to people, or somebody might have experienced, I felt that there was somebody in the room with me the other night, and, you can kind of get different perspectives on what's happening. But but we are lucky.
It seems to be more of a European thing to have warlocks or men witches than in the States. Yeah.
Whereas, in Ireland, we would probably say that they were druids more than witches,
Yvonne, where did it all start for you? When did you get interested in it?
I was always interested in it, ever since a little girl. I just found it fascinating. Yeah, you just know it. And you know what? Anytime you were reading a fairy tale, I was always going, oh, that poor witch now has been blamed for X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And then you start to explore it a little. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you start to explore things a little. Obviously, in the 80s, there wasn't that much to explore, but you just kind of felt that there was something more to the world that was around you. There was something a bit more magical, or there was something, you couldn't quite put your finger on it, but you knew there was something else there. So, and then you start doing meditation, and you start meeting groups, and then, you begin to realize, hey, something's blossoming here. Yeah. And it was just the witchcraft side of things that really interested me. The fact that, you work completely with the seasons, you're working with the plants and the animals. And I love being outside anyway. So it just really called to me. Then before you know it, you start meeting people within the town of Youghal, and you're going, I have this big interest. And they go, oh my God, I have too. And things begin to develop, and you start beginning to meet up. And then from there, you have something amazing, which is what we have now, the Spirit of Sound. And it begins to grow. And as I said, we're just so lucky that we live in the beautiful town of Youghal, and people, they come and they they participate in Samhain itself, and they come and they look and see what's happening on the beach. And, you don't get any negativity. What you get is, wow, that is just so amazing. And it's a completely different way of looking at the world and, than they would have been shown. And there's a lot of interest in it, a lot of interest.
The internet must have been a godsend for you.
It was indeed. And even when we were doing our ritual on the beach, we had a live feed going on a group called Love Y'all, and it got there was over 5,000 people viewing it.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, yeah. And then they'll contact you afterwards. And there was actually some witches had travelled from the UK for it. We had some witches that had travelled from America, believe it or not, for it. And we spoke to a beautiful couple who had come from Germany. And what they had, they were actually going to Galway, but then they saw, oh my goodness, just on our Facebook page, well, they're doing an actual ritual and it's not very commercialised. So instead of going to Galway, they came down to Youghal and they said, we'll be back next year and we'll be bringing a lot more people with us.
It's a small world, Yvonne. And when you were growing up and you were feeling all this, were you superstitious at all? You throw salt over your left shoulder and what happened?
No, I wasn't, but my mother was and my grandmother was.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much superstitious. And you know what? We were lucky because, as I said about the Vanishka and the story of the woman of the water, we grew up with ghost stories around us, and we grew up always, even though we were brought up as Catholic, we were always taught to, that there was a lot more going on than you could see. And really, at the end of the day, it's always about a feeling, because nobody, when you go into a room or you might go into an old church or something, you just get that feeling. Nobody can say to you, people might say to you, would you ever cop on or whatever, but nobody can take away that feeling from you. We're more than our bones.
And we have more so much than more our five senses, I think, for sure.
Yeah, we're definitely.
I always say as well, because there's a lot going on in the world, control-wise, I think, an attempt perhaps to control people. But I always say you cannot really legislate for instinct. And I think gut feeling, there's so much to that. I mean, I don't know about you, Yvonne, but I'm only speaking personally now because you have a lovely way about you, and I'd love to, just open up to you. I feel, and I don't think I'm the only one, that we are on the verge of something. I'm not sure what it is worldwide. It's a feeling I had, I suppose, with the whole COVID thing, our whole world, I mean, that was so went upside down. And I will be the token fruitcake or whatever, but I didn't quite buy a lot of that, but I don't want to get controversial. But what
I do with you on that, though.
Oh, good. Well, we could talk then, you know, but we won't. I mean, to me, there was a contrivance there, right? And there was no debate. That was the thing. I mean, we're supposed to be the free world and whatever, but there was no debate. It is you will do this and you will do that and you will take this or you won't take that. And if you don't, you're not a good person. All this kind of carry on. But as I said, that's me going off on one now, and I need to rein that in. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, it goes back to instinct, doesn't it? Saying. I've never felt like, and I've kids, and I've done my time, if you like. And I just have this ominous something's gonna go wrong, or some attempt is gonna be made. Whether it succeeds or not, now that's a different matter. You know,
it is. Yeah.
So I'm not total nuts then, Yvonne. I'd like.
You're not total nuts at all. You know, it's a shame people don't listen to their own intuition a bit more.
Absolutely. Or
be guided by it, because your intuition, your gut feeling, it will never. It's there for a reason. And it will never put you wrong. It never puts you wrong, because when something goes wrong, you always say, well, why didn't I listen to my gut? Yeah. You know, even if everybody's saying to you, well, that person's really nice, and then you're thinking, oh, well, maybe they are, but your gut is telling you something else.
I tell you, we need to get back into the witchery stuff, because I do respect your time. So we've spoken about, what about charms and amulets? Is there anything like you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. Well, for me, I think it's just if you have that belief in a charm or an amulet, that's enough for it to work really, for you, because you're putting that energy into it. You have a belief in it. You know, I mean, for us, we would wear what's called a pentagram or a pentacle, and that represents earth, air, fire, and water, and it's got a protection. It's a protective charm, and a lot of us would wear that because obviously it represents the seasons, it represents the elements. Or we would wear the moon or a goddess amulet as well. So these are all, are all for protection. Much like, you see a lot of Catholics wearing crosses.
I'm glad you've put me right on the pentagram, because I always associated that with satanic kind of ritual. So I got that completely wrong.
That's got nothing at all to do with it.
Oh.
And it's all to do with earth, air, fire and water, and spirit would be your fifth element in that.
So,
and people, if somebody sees you wearing one, if they're not aware of it, or they're going, oh my God, as you said, that's Satan.
Yeah.
Satanism, and there's no Satan in witchcraft. That's a Catholic thing. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Okay.
But so it's basically a protection, and it's also about the seasons, earth, air, fire, and water, and spirit.
Okay, now this is probably more paranormal. So stop me then. Say something like the Ouija board. Do witches dabble in same?
Yeah, of course they do.
Do they? Yeah.
What's it called? What do we call it? Texting from heaven. That's what we call it. The Ouija board. No, I'm joking.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just a tool, and you have to use it with respect.
Yes.
Again, you're going back to Hollywood, and they're showing you the Ouija board and how terrifying it is, because, hey, who's going to watch a movie where everybody's sitting around the Ouija board and it's all really nice and gentle and beautiful, and you're getting these lovely messages.
Yes.
And but the unfortunate thing is people tend to use the Ouija board when they're drunk, or when they're feeling
when the
very
spirits
depressed.
are at work in more ways than one. Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know what? Like attracts like. So your vibration is low, you've had your drinks, you're making fun of the Ouija board, you're not going to get beautiful spirits to come across and talk to you. What you're going to attract is something very, very different. So and treat it with respect.
With respect. Absolutely.
That's it.
And tarot cards.
Oh yeah, that would be another favourite of ours. We would. It's nice actually. It's kind of when we get up in the morning. Not all of us, but some of us. You'd sit and you'd have your cup of tea, your cup of coffee, and you'd just pull a card and say, "God, what energy is coming towards me today now?" And let the card. Take your tarot card, let it rest on the table, and have a look at it. And then at the end of the day, then have a look and say, well, what did that tarot card mean? But again, it's a tool. Mm-hmm. Where you're using your intuition. You're looking at the card and you're saying, well, what does that mean? Or what does that mean for the person that you're reading for? So it's just a tool. It's all back to intuition. It just helps you. I suppose it gives you a focus.
Yvonne, do you have a favourite incantation? As
above, so below, as we say, it shall be so.
Oh, God, you're good. I love it. Say it again.
So, yeah.
What is it again?
As above,
so below.
So below, as we say, it shall be so.
It shall be so.
It shall be so. So you're saying, you're bringing that.
I'd say spells. Do you cast spells?
Yeah, we would cast a spell. So basically what you're doing is you're seeing what it is that you want to manifest. So for example, it can be as simple as a bay leaf. So you know the bay leaf trees? Mm-hmm. So you take a bay leaf, and bay leaf, when you go and look at what a bay leaf does or what they represent, so they're all about wishes, and you just hold it in your hand and you say, what is it that I would love, that would benefit me, would be of benefit to me, and you kind of put that energy into your bay leaf, and then you put it into the fire, and then the smoke goes up and out into the universe, and you let the universe worry about it for you. So it doesn't have to be all these really long things, or it doesn't have to take days to do it. It can be as simple and as powerful as doing something like that. That's
beautiful. So it's no Eye of Newt and Toe of Frog and all that stuff, no?
Well, Eye of Newt is actually mustard seed, believe it or not.
What's Toe of Frog
back
then?
In the very... it's some sort of a plant that we don't actually have in Ireland. I think it's in America. So basically what they were doing was, when they were writing their spells, they were looking at each of the plants, and they were going, okay, what does that look like? What does that look like? And then they'd put their spells together. And it was a way, I suppose, of keeping them secret as well. So you maybe just tell your friends or tell the other people that you might be sitting around the fire with what each of them meant. It sounds so much better than saying mustard seed, though, doesn't it?
It does. And I've just seen Toe of Frog is a buttercup, and wool of bat.
Oh, buttercup. Oh, right.
Wool of bat is, Yvonne, it's moss or or holly leaves.
Yeah, I think we would tend to use it as moss here. Wool of bat, yeah.
Beautiful. Your favourite element, would it be, you mentioned elements? Air. Why is that?
Yeah, I suppose I get up every morning and I go for a beautiful long walk before I start work. And, you look at the sky and it's magical. And maybe because I'm Gemini, that's an air sign as well. Again, air has a lot to do with thoughts and being creative in your head and your mind.
Freedom, yeah.
And it's freedom, yeah. And you can, and when the wind blows, it's just so cleansing. Yeah, so I'm attracted to EIRE, but all of them obviously have their own amazing attributes. But it's EIRE would do it for me.
EIRE is good for you. You will be out, please God, in the beautiful fresh air on the winter solstice on the Mull Beach. And before you go, Youghal, is that celebrated, or what does that mean to a witch?
So Youghal is the same as the winter solstice. It's on the 21st of December. But Youghal is a German. I think it's more German, whereas we would celebrate the winter solstice. So it's just a different name for the same thing, but it would be more to do with I think it's more German. Youghal is German, whereas we say winter solstice here.
So it's the same thing. Lovely.
It's the same thing.
And finally, if you pardon the expression, do you have a familiar?
I have my familiar. She's actually downstairs as we speak in front of the fire. She's the most beautiful little doggy, and her name is Luna.
Oh, beautiful. After the moon.
And she comes everywhere with me. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And we just found her. She jumped into the car. Well, she jumped into the car with us one day, and she hasn't left us since.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Oh, listen, I have one more to ask you. I want to ask you, do you have an altar?
I do, yes. And I have one downstairs now, just all done up for the winter solstice. So we have our holly and we have our ivy. We have acorns as well on it, I believe. So a lot of the stuff I'd be picking up as I'm walking the woods as well. And we have the triple goddess and Santa Claus.
Great.
So the Holly King and so it would be the Holly King is what we would call Santa.
And would you have a cauldron as well?
I would have a cauldron, yeah. I probably have about 7 or 8 of them around the house. And we burn our beautiful, either candles we put into it or else we burn incense.
Yvonne Lawton, you have been an absolute lady, and as I said earlier, and I meant it without patronising you, you have a lovely way about you, and that's why...
Oh, thank you very much.
We could talk about this world and where it's going, but hopefully on Van Ishka will point in the right direction for us, and we'll all come out of it good. So listen, where can we find you?
Well, you can look us up on Spirit of Samhain. We have an Instagram page, and we also have a Facebook page. So you can follow us on that and see what we're up to.
Fantastic.
And I believe one of the lads, one of our male witches, is putting YouTube channel together as well. You know, it's important that I'm not just saying us in general, but people that do this type of work get out there, because it's really important to the world and to the universe, like you were saying earlier on, where, you know, there are so many bad things happening, but there are so many beautiful people out there as well, you know, that work with nature and have beautiful qualities about them.
And you are one of those people. So you take care.
Thank you very much.
No, I mean it. It's been a pleasure and very enlightening as well. I have to say, you know, pentagram, I was walking around. You've put my mind at rest about that symbol, because anytime I went on a ghost hunter or whatever, an investigation, you'd see this thing and you go, oh, the Satanists must have been in here. Probably the exact opposite. Won't you look after yourself and have a lovely Youghal time?
And you too. Bye. Take care.
Yeah, a couple of things over the years, but I've learned. Well, I suppose it's not learned. I've just become accustomed to it, and I think it's kind of it's another sense or something. But often when you go into places, you'll get a feeling for the place, and you'll get a feeling of whether or not it's comfortable. And whatever causes that, who knows what causes that? But we have an intuition, we have an inbuilt intuition. I can't describe what it is or where it comes from, or the physics of it or the chemistry of it, but it's there, and anybody will tell you to stick with your intuition. If you think something doesn't feel right, then don't hang around.
Superb advice from regular contributor to Scary Era, David McGlynn, aka The Squire. And don't hang around either. If you've got an Irish paranormal tale to tell, simply email paranormalireland@protonmail.com and it'll be read out for you. Or you get to tell it on air yourself. That's paranormalireland@protonmail.com.
Today is your lucky day if you've ever wanted to know about all things paranormal in County Galway, because I got talking to Philip Costello of Paranormal Awakenings Ireland, PAI. Before we talked paranormal, we talked Galway.
So Galway is a beautiful coastal area with a lot of medieval history. It's known as the City of Tribes, and it has many family names. It has much history with medieval past. It has the beautiful cliffs of Moher, one of the most beautiful views in Ireland.
And was there a Spanish influence there at one point?
Of course, yeah. There's an area in Galway called the Spanish Arch, right down beside where the Clad is, and it's where the Claddagh Ring was first made, the most famous with. But the Spanish ships used to come into the Claddagh to drop off goods at the time, back in the 1800s.
Like a commercial area?
It was. It would have been the hustle and bustle area. Would have had lots of markets, would have had little cottages, would have been where a lot of stuff would have been brought in for storage, trade goods. Kind of where part of the old extension of the old city walls would have been at the time as well.
And the Claddagh Ring itself there, that distinctive ring, you know, when it faces down, what does that mean? And when it faces up, do you know that bit, no?
It varies. So some say that when it faces in, it means your heart belongs to yourself. When it faces out, it means that your heart belongs to another. Now, it depends on what hand it's on. If it's on the left hand facing in, it means that you're engaged to a person. If it's on the left hand facing out, it means that you're in a relationship. However, if it's on the right hand facing out, you're single. In means that you're taken. It apparently was also known as an unofficial Irish engagement ring one time.
And do you have one?
I do indeed.
Which way is it facing?
It's facing in on my left hand.
Very good. So what does that mean again? You're taken
engaged.
Oh yeah, congratulations. Yeah. Another good one bites the dust.
That's it.
We're here to talk paranormal Galway, really. So where did it start for you?
It would have started for me at a young age, growing up in the country. Back in the old days, the older people would have a lot of stories of, you know, the Banshee, fairy motor cars, headless horsemen, and, you know, you'd hear your grandparents or your great-grandparents talking about all this. And you'd either grow a fascination in it, or you'd kind of be scared of it, or you'd fob it off. You know, but for me, I kind of got into this and hearing all these stories, and I was fascinated with it. And of course, then I'd have a fascination with it, the shows and seeing spooky things on TV and whatever. So got me into it that way, you know. And then an incident where when I was 6 years old, just a week before my mother passing, I had a dream of her driving away. Now, at the time, I hadn't a clue what it meant, but, you know, looking back at it, I think it was sort of like a symbol of her saying goodbye in a way, you know what I mean? She was only 36 when she passed, you know, cancer, but looking back at it was sort of like, okay, well, it must have been a sign to say, you know, she's going, but at being so young, you wouldn't realise that, you know.
But it stuck with you all the same, yeah.
Absolutely.
I know the Burren is more County Clare, but it is regional to Galway. It's on the west coast. Maybe expand on that for us, Philip. A
lot of limestone out there. It's a very, very rugged area. Like, it's very stone, bog, rough area. But it has a lot of history in it. Lovely walkways, you know. It's got a lot of walking trails.
Yes.
It's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of cairns and burial areas.
Yeah, burial areas.
Stuff like that.
The dolmen tombs, they're distinctive, aren't they? The big slab of rock weighing tons upon maybe 3 vertical stones.
Yes. Now, it's not exactly sure how they done it back in the day, but they were believed to be burial places of clan members that would have been maybe high up in rank at the time. Could have been chieftains, you know, someone of a high status.
Yes. Speaking of high status, was there a judge there that hung his own son?
Yeah, apparently he was the mayor of Galway, and he found that his son was very fond of the ladies, and he didn't like the way that he was ruining their good name. So the story says that he hung his son from the window.
Jeepers.
But it's debatable whether it happened or not. Some people say it did, other people say it wouldn't, you know, support the weight. We'll never know, you know.
So there was no Biden-like pardon for him anyway?
No, absolutely not, you know. It would have been, it's kind of like the Lynch Memorial window area, you know. It would have been around maybe 1493 area, let's say, but his son was kind of condemned and murdered, and, the executioner hung him from the window and left him there as a sort of a warning to others not to cross him.
So hence the
it's
term
the lynch's
mob.
window.
Well, that's where the word lynch comes from, to lynch someone.
Yeah.
All right.
It would have been a guy called James Lynch Fitzstephen, who was the mayor at the time, and he was the magistrate in Galway.
Okay. And
because of his son having a romantic rival, he ended up hanging him from that window. So
to
lynch somebody kind of came from that, like you said.
And of course, as well, the whole area was devastated by the famine.
There's a lot of memorials around from the famine times. A lot of people emigrated from there, just not having enough to eat. Buds going black.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's places dotted around the place. I remember I was working in a place called Clonbur. The hills that were around us were all old farming areas where they had small little plots of land between themselves that they tried to grow potatoes in, and there's still the old walls separating the little bits of farmland, and there's apparently said to be still bodies dotted around that haven't been found yet, that people had just dropped and died with hunger.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of a spooky enough area,
You mentioned the hills. The old poteen, which was the kind of like, it was like the moonshine, wasn't it? Pucheen.
Yeah.
Did those boys try and make up stories as well about fairies to distract people from their criminal activity?
Yeah. Maybe we've fairies in Ireland have always had a thing hand in hand, where it's like, it's not like the Americans would show it as little green dancing people or Tinkerbell or something like that,
Top of the morning.
Yeah.
And the bottom of the evening.
That's it.
Yeah.
To be sure.
Yeah, musher.
Musher. Yeah. But a lot of people still believe in the fairy folk, and you'd have fairy forts in different fields and stuff where the older generation wouldn't go near, and you'd have, they'd say that you couldn't touch a tree around the fairy fort because it would send a curse on you.
Wow.
Traditionally, fairy forts are they're believed to be magic areas where the fairies had lived. Now, from what we've been told, we were at a gentleman's area, Pat Noon's fairy field, and he has many, many, many stories around his field and about the fairies and the stories of them. And one thing I remember him saying was that they can show to be perfectly human at 5 foot tall,
right,
or they might disguise themselves.
Oh.
But they're supernatural beings, let's say. Some would say that they were here before people moved in and took over most of the land and stuff. But typically, fairy forts relate to curses or retribution enhanced on people that might disturb the structures. Someone might move a stone, like you said, or might cut down a tree and it put on the face curse, as it, where people could fall dead, or they might lose their wealth, or animals might die, or something like that. But on the opposite side of that, people also believe that the fairies could bring you good luck. So you can leave offerings like little trinkets or little bottles of whiskey or, ribbons, something just as an offering to stay in peace with the fairies, and that they can bring good luck, good harvest. They can, if they're left alone, they leave you alone.
Right.
And,
I often associate the whole thing of a wake, an Irish wake, with Galway. Honouring the dead as well, is that something that we've forgotten to do properly, or have there been any traditions that you're aware of?
Well, I know, when I was younger, with honouring the dead, the wakes always used to happen in the houses.
Mm-hmm.
So when a person died, my own experience would be going to someone's house and the person be laid out in the bed, or they'd be in the middle of the sitting room and people would come and pay their respects, and they'd have a bit of a gathering. I won't say a hoolie, but a gathering where they drink around and stay with the body and have a laugh and stuff. Or the Stations of the Cross one time,
right,
in the house, or the Blessings of the Cross and stuff. All that has kind of been forgotten now.
Tell us about some of the locations you've been to.
One of the locations we would have been is a place called Tyrone House. It would have been one of my favourite spots. It's basically a 1770 Georgian-style house in an area called Kilcolgan in Galway.
Okay.
And we've been there many times. It would have been owned by the St. George family at the time, who would have owned much of the area around Kilcolgan. And the French St. George family would have been described as, let's say, cruel, very kind of a dominating crowd at the time. They would have had this massive house, you know, they'd had their parties in there and they would have had much land around it and everything, but they'd kind of kicked their farmers out when it suited them. There was a lot of stuff that went on in the house that wouldn't have been properly documented or known about at the time. Like with many of these old houses, there would have been cruelty with the servants and a lot of debauchery going on in cellars and in corner rooms and stuff. And with St. George himself, there was a story that if there was a wedding around the area, that he had to get the bride-to-be before the husband.
Oh, my
He
God.
had to have her
life,
first.
wasn't it? Different time.
You know.
Yeah.
A very different time. But this house, it's said that the house was burnt down because at the time they believed that the EIRE and the Black and Tans were fighting at around the time, but they were believing that the Black and Tans would have taken the house and might have turned it into an infirmary during the 1920s, War of Independence area. So they decided to burn the house down so that they wouldn't get the house. However, there's other conflicting stories saying that the locals around the area had burnt the house down to stop, again, people going in using it for the wrong reasons. But a lot of the stuff was raided in the place and everything first. When we were there, we got a couple of interesting bits, especially in the cellar area. I remember one time when we were there, we were doing an investigation. We were doing an EVP session at the time. Now, this was with an older, different team that we were with. And suddenly I just I don't know what happened. I went into some sort of a trance, or I don't know how to describe it, but it was like something there had taken me over. It was like I channeled something. I was looking at a member of the group who changed, if you get me. They morphed into someone else. So this person who doesn't have a beard or a facial hair suddenly had sort of dark facial hair, a very old English style hairstyle, you know, parted to one side, kind of a suit on it. And I just remember that I wanted to kill him, that I just was going to go through him because he had done something to a family member, to a woman. I didn't want him in the house, you know what I mean? Like we said, there was a lot of stuff that went on in places like that wouldn't have been local knowledge, that you wouldn't go boasting about, you know, where servants would have been raped and
Sure.
things like that, where these gentry and landlords or their friends at these parties would have had their way with the poor little servants and be told to shut up or you'd be thrown out of a job.
Yes.
So something like that must have happened or could have happened, but there's no details, let's say, that I could find on it of anything of that nature going on.
I suppose, after all, Philip, these were stately homes. Is there any indication of their former glory or indeed original layout?
With a lot of these places, you know, you have to do a lot of research into it. And lucky enough here in Galway, there's a library in the town that keeps a lot of records on places. Let's say this place, for example, and it would have shown where the kitchen was, the piano room. There was like a children's area, massive dining area, kitchens, bedrooms, all that kind of stuff.
Were there any more eerie incidents?
We've had stones thrown at us in that place.
Wow.
From unseen forces.
Yeah.
Like we were in there one night. We had the infrared cameras and everything. We decided to sort of stand in a circle away from each other with the lights just totally off. And we said, we'll just try this and see what had happened. And I called out and I asked if there is anyone here to make yourself known, maybe throw something or say something. And as soon as I said it, a stone was flung at us, landing at our feet.
Yeah.
There was a lad with us at the time. He was doing a bit of video for us. He got scared out of his wits and he wanted out of there. He was like, no, I'm done. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah,
I'm finished. I'm out of here. And he didn't come back with his sense. it's stuff like that that would kind of make you want to keep going back to see would you get it more, or try and figure out who was throwing it. We did pick up on a lady there who possibly was an old servant. She still walks around the basement area. I believe that we have EVP of her saying, "I am pretty."
Self-praise is no praise, Philip.
That's it.
Anyway, moving to more contemporary times, did you guys investigate Lord Haw Haw's grave?
Lord Haw Haw was American-born fascist at the time of the Second World War, but he was brought to Ireland and lived in Galway.
Because his parents, I think, were Irish, isn't that correct?
His father was Irish,
Right.
his mother was from York, I believe, or in England.
So he had Irish roots.
So he had Irish roots, and then they moved him to England. He had family in Galway, around the Ballinrobe, Mayo area and Sawhill, Galway area, but he was moved to England where he would have been recruited to an intelligence corps that was actually well, before that he was recruited by a fellow called Patrick Keating, who was from County Galway, and he was recruited as a courier. Now, he was also suspected by the EIRE of working as an informant for the Black and Tans when he was only a young lad.
Yeah.
Now, he was eventually had an attempted assassination when he was on his way home from school one evening. So he was moved to England a while after to the Worcestershire Regiment. It's also rumoured that he had a hand in the capture and murder of Father Griffin in Galway. And that would have been one of the questions that we had asked at his grave at the time. But he basically, long story short, he ended up being a mouth for the Nazi propaganda during the war, and was always bad-mouthing the English, and, on a radio station where he'd been the one to start saying Germany calling.
Yeah, propaganda, basically. And he had a kind of snooty tone about him. It was like he was ridiculing the British people, but they ended up ridiculing him in the end. He was seen as a figure of fun, really.
Germany calling, Germany calling, Germany calling. Here are the Reichs in ambush. Station Bremen and Station DXB on the 31-meter bend.
Yeah, I mean, he was called Lord Haw Haw because of the way he spoke and everything. Yeah. And he was trying to dishearten the English people, but instead he ended up getting a lot of people listening to his show.
Yes.
Who found it interesting to hear, and because a lot of the stuff was edited and couldn't be broadcasted, they wanted to tune into German radio stations, let's say,
yes, to
hear about stuff. But
he was fascist. I think he was with Oswald Mosley's crowd in London, who was the kind of British attempt at a fascist dictator. He got into a lot of squabbles there as well, but actually I'll tell you a little bit about it that you mightn't know, right? So he was captured around the area of Denmark, somewhere like that, Northern Europe, and at one point he got shot because an officer thought he was trying to make a break for it or something, but he got shot. He was injured before they took him back to London.
Mm-hmm.
And as you quite rightly said, because you know your stuff, the fact that he'd been born an American, and the thought that might save him from the hangman's noose, as you know, it didn't. Tell you something else. Before he'd gone to Nazi Germany, he'd been in a fight, I think, as I said, as one of Oswald Mosley's men, probably fighting communists or something like that. So he got a horrific scar that went from his mouth to his ear. It was really awful looking thing. And when they hung him, apparently the scar reopened. Have you ever heard that? Yeah,
I did. It apparently busted open once the noose had tightened around his neck.
But you got to the grave anyway. When was that? We
went to the grave, which is only down the road from us here. So we thought it'd be interesting to see if Lord Haw Haw had a couple of things to say to us, because it's not something that people would know about or would associate in Ireland of someone being locally in here. So we said we'd go down, we'd see if he'd anything to talk about or he'd anything to say. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't our friend that night.
Right.
But oddly enough, as we were doing an investigation down there, it sounded like the wind kept getting stronger and stronger, as if like he was getting more, someone or something was getting more and more annoyed with us and didn't want us talking down there. And this would have been maybe September, and it was a cold night. It was windy, and we said we'd go down, we'd try and do a couple of EVPs, and we'd try and contact him. We'd ask a few questions to see would we get any response. So we let down a couple of EVP machines. We had our cameras and stuff with us. Now our equipment kept going funny on us, and we couldn't explain it how or why that or the K2 meter would go off. The EVP machines were working at the time, but all the lights were going off for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
What was his real name again?
William Joyce.
William Joyce, that's right. Did you ever hear his last broadcast?
Apparently he sounded quite drunk and very...
He is, yeah.
All over the place.
Yes,
and a bottle of gin was found beside his papers.
Yeah, he's not haw-hawing at that point. I think he's looking at the nearest escape exit, but you can tell he's pretty much under the weather. So look, I wanted to talk to you about some of the other places as well that you've been. Palace Castle, does that ring a bell?
It's in Tina in County Galway, and it would have been built by the Burkes around the 1500s and owned by Fitzmaurice Burke clan. And it would have been restorated, passed down to a Nugent's family in Westmeath. It's 17th century gabled house, basically, with 5 massive big walls in it. And it's still an absolutely beautiful, beautiful building. Would have been about 5 stories high with a 3rd story vaulted window area and very, very thick walls and chambers around the place. Beautiful fireplaces and mulled sort of framed arched windows.
Are the heritage people looking after that now, or is it just another one of these places that's gone to rack and ruin?
It's a national monument of Ireland, so it would have been the national heritage that look after it.
Good.
And it's absolutely in beautiful, beautiful condition.
Do you know, I can testify to that because I saw on your Facebook page the drive up to it. It was beautiful. Yeah,
it's absolutely gorgeous. And we got a strange EVP or two there as well from something that we couldn't see, basically, or didn't expect to hear, but it was like just a growl of something cutting across on us that didn't want us there. And it was PJ that ended up getting the EVP. He was over at one of the towered areas and he was just doing his thing. And it was only after when he was checking back that he heard this sort of husky, gravelly, sort of like get out sort of a sound, so something didn't want him there, which you wouldn't, like during the day, it wouldn't be too bad. It looks lovely and everything, but at night I'm sure there's a whole different feel to it.
Absolutely. And was it during the day you got the EVP or?
It was during the day, yeah. I mean, with spirits, it doesn't matter whether it's day or night or, it's all the same to them.
Of course.
Apparently, it's best to go out at night because it's for video and for photographs and stuff. It's a lot easier to spot things than it would be during the day. But they're always around,
I think that was amazing, though, that other story you said, about being kind of not quite possessed.
I would have been a bit too open to it, where I'd have myself left open to a lot of these things, a lot more than I'd realised, but I've been told by my own clairvoyant and medium friend that you need to close yourself up, Phil, because they can attach to you very, very much without you realising it. So you've got to be very careful and very aware of your surroundings and don't be so open to these things.
Sound advice.
As I said, I used to watch a lot of these spirit programs and everything, and remember Most Haunted one time?
Yeah, I do remember Most Haunted indeed.
I used to be fascinated when that came out, and with Derek O'Connor and everything as well. But I ended up, going to places and going, if you need to use me as a vessel, use me as a vessel, talk through me, thinking, everything would be fine, whatever. And then someone said, don't do that because it's absolutely very dangerous. You do not know what you're inviting into yourself. So you've got to stop that and do not give them the authority to do such a thing, because it's easy to invite them in, it's harder to get them out.
And that's it from Philip Costello of Paranormal Awakenings Ireland. But we shall not be letting the sun go down on Galway Bay, because Philip and myself had a lot more recorded and I shall be sharing it with you in the coming episodes. Special mention to Philip's Fraulein fiancé, and indeed to PJ, who coordinates all things in PAI.
Mark Manning.
Scary Era is a Mark Manning media production in association with the Paranormal UK radio network, broadcast bi-weekly from Ireland's ancient east coast. Next time, Anthony and Jessica from Ghost Era join us, as well as Matthew Clark from the Cork Supernatural Society. Till then, take care, 'cause I care.